Welcome to RPG Book Club Shortcast, a podcast where we play a big bit of a little video game and talk about how it makes us feel. I am Sam Allman.
I'm David Bernard Houck.
And I'm Maddy Grace Webben.
And today we will be starting our discussion of The Last of Us Part 1, which we have to say now because Part 2 came out. But we'll be covering everything in the summer portion of the game, and we'll finish everything else up next week.
We're playing the first of The Last of Us.
Yes. It's Last of Us Part 1, Part 1.
Exactly.
.avi. So, if you have lived under a rock for the last 7 years and do not know, The Last of Us is a video game by Naughty Dog, who are famous for the Crash Bandicoot games and nothing else. No, they are
also,
incredibly
let us
prolific.
take a moment to not be revisionist. Crash Bandicoot games are fucking goated. Let's just make sure we're all clear on this. Just because these guys are now known for making extremely serious cinematic works of literary game art, do not give me this bullshit like Crash Bandicoot, the cartoon mascot game, where one goes forward and collects apples, is not also about as good as The Last of Us. Especially Crash Bandicoot 2, The Wrath of Cortex.
Yeah,
what I find really interesting is that you can draw a clear line from Crash Bandicoot to Jak and Daxter. You can draw a clear line from Jak and Daxter to Uncharted, and you can draw a clear line from Uncharted to The Last of Us. So, like, they never made some big leap. They always just sort of took the next logical step, and that led from Crash Bandicoot to The Last of Us.
Yeah, it's like, okay, well, Crash Bandicoot is like pure platforming. The plot is an afterthought. Then Jak and Daxter 1 was pure platforming with the plot was deeper, but still an afterthought. Then Jak 2, you start being like tortured in a military industrial complex, and the plot is here to stay. And
this MF said industrial.
Industrial.
But yeah, I totally agree. Like, it actually is a smooth progression from Crash to Jak and Daxter to Uncharted to The Last of Us. It's really quite funny how actually coherent the progression is for this game company.
The Last of Us is, like we said, very close to Uncharted. It just is a survival horror Uncharted, where Uncharted is adventure platforming, but it feels similarly as you're walking around and doing the thing. It was released exclusively for the PS3 back in the end days of the console, and so it was shortly thereafter remastered for PS4. I remember that the game wasn't even quite in the everyone has played it status yet when it was released as a launch title for the PS4. And it's actually the reason I bought my PS4 on Amazon, because The Last of Us was a bundle on Amazon. I was like, oh, hell yeah, this game is amazing. I'm going to play it first day on my brand spanking new PS4. But they also gave me Infamous 3, and I'm a weeb for superheroes, so I played that game instead. And this is the first time that I've played The Last of Us here some fucking 7 years later. Whoops.
Well,
Infamous is also good.
It's okay, because here's the thing. The game's a game out of time anyway. Like, when was the game released? 2013, right?
Yeah.
Right. It was released 2013, but, like, look, game design-wise, it is straight out of 2004. So, like, doesn't matter when you're playing it.
Yeah.
and I mean that in the most positive possible way.
And it was by far the best-looking game on PS3. Then they remastered it for PS4. So, it doesn't look old.
Yeah, no,
It doesn't look like a brand new game, but it doesn't look like, I'm playing something that looks like something on the Xbox 360.
That's the other thing. If you play the PS4 version, I feel like if you play the PS4 version and you don't play the PS3 version in the year 2013, you are missing out on one little bit of thing, which is that the graphics were, like, it is a you had to be there thing. Like,
yeah,
you've seen good graphics now, but, like, when me and Bernard played this game, we passed the controller back and forth the entire game in college. We played the game in like 2 sittings, right, Bernard? Like, we played the bitch out of it. It did not take us very long to beat the entire game.
We were really into that game.
Yeah, we marathoned the whole fucking thing. But like, we were just like, actually, I guess Crash Bandicoot's the same way. We look at Crash Bandicoot 1 and you're like, this is a PlayStation. How on earth is this happening? And that is how The Last of Us Part 1 is. Like, just cannot possibly believe how good the graphics are on the PS3 version of that game.
Yeah.
And now it's like, it looks like any other PS4 remaster.
I believe we actually said, while we were playing that, something along the lines of, remember when MGS4 was good graphics?
Yeah, like, MGS, like, the gap between PS2 games and Metal Gear Solid 4 is the same as the gap between Metal Gear Solid 4 and The Last of Us, despite them being on the same console.
Yeah. Yeah, like I was playing it on the PS5, so it's the PS4 remaster plus the oomping that they did for the PS5 version.
Yeah.
And it feels the exact same as my other PS5 games. The things that stick out are not graphical. They are AI wise. I'm like, oh yeah, this is a 2013 game because the AI is fucking stupid.
Yeah.
But the graphics, like, not at all.
Yeah, and I think there are certain elements of the game's production values that stand out even today. Not the literal graphics, because literal graphics are better on games now from a pure technical standpoint. But there's elements of its production values where it's like, oh, even modern games don't put the effort in to do things like that, to put in little details like that. And I'll mention some of the specific ones later in our memorable moments. I have one in particular. Actually, I'll go ahead and tell you. Well, the one I have in particular, Bernard, let's put it this way. I actually am lying. It didn't actually happen this time around. It's what happened the first time we played. If you remember the one thing that really blew us away in 2013. If you don't, that's fine. You'll remember it when I get there.
Okay, you're going to have to tell me.
Yeah, I'll tell you later. The reason I say that is because it's a thing that doesn't always happen in a given playthrough. Okay. So it didn't, so I had to remember it. But anyway, the point is, I will say, like, obviously a game is much more than just good graphics, and the game's a masterpiece in, like, every way. But also, shout outs to the graphics.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only graphical thing that really stood out to me as, like, not great was I was like, you can tell the difference in model quality between gameplay and cutscenes. They're clearly swapping in a much higher quality model for the cutscenes.
Oh, yeah.
But other than that...
Yeah.
And of course, that's a thing that all games do, but it's just more noticeable in The Last of Us Part 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
So, this game was originally planned to be a graphic novel about a father and a daughter in a zombie apocalypse, but Neil Druckmann, the writer, and Bruce Stanley, the director, watched the BBC Planet Earth segment on the zombie fungus ant thing, and they were like, fuck it, no, we're doing that instead.
Are you serious?
I did not know this.
Yeah. I did my research. It's absolutely 100% true.
I mean,
that's
really
cool.
That ant fungus is real freaky, and it's weird there wasn't a major piece of media based on that idea before.
Yeah. So the game has a whole bunch of influences, and when I'm about to read the major list that they've mentioned in interviews, and every single one you can be like, oh yeah, I see it, but it doesn't feel like a ripoff of any of them. So their influences are the aforementioned Planet Earth, The Walking Dead, City of Thieves, The Stand, The Earth Abides, I Am Legend, The Road, No Country for Old Men, True Grit, Children of Men, 28 Days Later, The Day of the Triffids, and Uncharted 2 specifically, Level 17, Mountaineering, and Eco. Basically,
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
you throw all of
those
that
I'm familiar with. Yeah.
There's a couple of those that I'm not familiar with, but all the ones that I am, I'm like, oh yeah, that's absolutely 100% what we have going on.
As the local pretentious ass book reader, I have to say, I haven't read The Road, but I have read a different book by Cormac McCarthy. And I can still definitely tell the influence. All the Pretty Horses, fantastic book.
Did y'all follow the saga of a fake Cormac McCarthy Twitter account getting verified?
What?
What?
So
No.
there was this very obviously fake Cormac McCarthy Twitter account that was making jokes like, my publicist says getting on Twitter is a good use of my final days, making jokes like that. And it got verified somehow.
Wild.
That's amazing.
People contacted Cormac McCarthy's publicist and or agent or whatever, and they were like, yeah, no, this is not Mr. McCarthy, and it got unverified, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, that happened.
That's wild.
That's amazing. So The Last of Us sold a bajillion copies, and it spawned a DLC and a sequel that also sold a bajillion copies. But most importantly, this engine is not the Uncharted 3 engine. It is the canceled Jak and Daxter 4 engine, which I think is neat. And
that's amazing.
That
I
makes
didn't
me
know that.
super happy. They had started building a new Jak and Daxter game. It had built out the engine and then pivoted to make The Last of Us instead. So yeah, those are all the fun facts I found about this game. So let's listen to some song from the soundtrack, and then we will talk about the plot.
Gustavo Santaolalla, bitches.
Yeah, really, really good OST.
So feel free to jump in if I skipped over anything that may be important later, because a lot of this game is told in cutscenes, but a lot of it is also told in people walking around and saying stuff. And I skipped over all of the walk around and saying stuff parts when I was writing my notes, so I may have missed something. But our game starts, and we control a little girl named Sarah, who is not the little girl on the cover of the game, so we promise to not get attached. She is sleeping on the couch, waiting for her dad, Joel, who is the man on the cover of the game, so we really shouldn't get attached to Sarah. It is Joel's birthday.
We also shouldn't get attached to Joel.
Shouldn't, just because he's a bad person.
Yeah, if you get attached to Joel, that might not say great things about you.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know. You can get attached to him, but you should also, as a fictional character, but also you should acknowledge that he's a bad person.
Oh,
Yes.
Shout outs. Joel is played by everyone's favorite new hotness. And by the new hotness, I mean he's been the new hotness for like 8 years now. What's his name?
Troy Baker?
Troy Baker. There we go.
I couldn't remember which one was Troy Baker and which one was Nolan North, because those are the two new hotnesses.
Troy Baker was the new Nolan North. And now he's not, because he's just Troy Baker and has been for 8 years now. He's known for doing things such as being Kanji from Persona 4 Golden, also being Revolver Ocelot in Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain, and also for being, what was his recent role that was so amazing?
Death Stranding, he was in.
Oh yeah, he's also the bad guy in Death Stranding. I was actually thinking of FF15, but that was not Troy Baker. That was somebody different who's awesome. Oh wait, sorry, Troy. Oh wait, yeah, and that guy was also whatever. It doesn't matter. I lost the plot on that sentence. Anyway, he's great. He's been in a lot of stuff.
Yes,
And
he's super good.
I know it's not relevant yet, but people always shout out Troy Baker, so I want to also shout out Ashley Johnson, voice actress for the person who's not Sarah, because
the character on the other character on the cover of the game.
Yes.
her performance is absolutely incredible. I was consistently blown away by it, and we need to talk about her as much as we talk about Troy Baker.
Yes. Yep. Especially because...
Although I think it might be a little more fair to talk about him more in this game, because...
Very true.
That makes sense, yeah, because she's the main character in that game. He's the main character in this game.
Exactly.
So, It's Joel's birthday, and she gets him a watch, but then she falls asleep on the couch again while they're watching TV. So Joel takes her to bed and tucks her in. She's awoken suddenly in the middle of the night by a phone call. It's her Uncle Tommy, who's panicking about something, and he asks to talk to Joel. Before she can figure out what's going on, the line drops and goes dead. She's super spooked, so she goes to find Joel in the house. As she's walking through the house, she sees on TV a news report about how the nationwide pandemic has started causing increased aggression. And then on the TV that she's watching, there's a huge, like a gas leak and a huge explosion, which she also sees out of her window happening in downtown Austin, Texas. So she makes it downstairs, and Joel busts in through the back door. He asks Sarah if she's okay and if anyone has come in. And she's like, why would someone come in? And he's like, it's the neighbors. They're sick. And she's like, what the fuck is going on? And then their neighbor busts through the back door like a damn zombie. Spoiler, he's a zombie, and tries to attack them. So Joel shoots him and takes Sarah with him into the yard. Tommy's there in the truck waiting on them. So they all pile in the truck and they get the fuck out of Dodge. As they're driving out, they hear that the military is putting up roadblocks to keep people from getting out of Travis County. So they're like, we got to find a way, like, past the roadblocks to get out of there. So they drive for a bit, and you can look at all the destruction going around everywhere. You're controlling Sarah still in the back seats. Like, you can look at whatever you want to, and it's really cool.
And she turns around as you move the camera. Mm-hmm. It's a great little
Super
detail.
Cool. Remember, these are the guys known for, like if you've played, if you've played Uncharted, they were really on the forefront of the whole like AAA interactive movie type thing. And this game it's actually much more grounded than the Uncharted games. You're not going to have the crazy shenanigans from those games because it's a different kind of game. But like, technically, the idea that if you move your camera and point it behind you, just the 3D model of the girl turns like behind you, just tiny shit like that. It rules so hard.
So good. So they pull onto the highway, but there's shitloads of traffic because they're in Austin, Texas, and it's rush hour. It has nothing to do with the zombies. But so they get stopped.
During South by.
Yeah.
And that's actually the whole thing. There's actually no zombies. It's just South by Southwest, and the neighbors were getting a little out of hand.
Yeah.
And then who's the terrible governor of Texas?
Abbott,
yeah. Or more like Ken Paxton. Ken Paxton was just like, yeah, let's just barricade the entire town. No one's getting out of there.
So Tommy turns before that, they're stopped in traffic, and the guy in front gets out to yell at the traffic because that always works to make it go faster. And some zombies come in from the side and eat the dude, and we see them eat the dude, and we're like, what the fuck? So we turn our truck around and try to get the fuck out of there. But the road that Tommy chooses to go down is blocked by an RV, so he has to like make around it. And as he gets around the RV, he gets broadsided by a truck that didn't see him. So the group comes to, and they're all safe but bruised, and Sarah's leg is super busted. So Joel decides to carry her, and Tommy carries the gun to keep the zombies off of them. They run away from the zombies and all of the explosions, and they cut through a building, but there's nothing to like block the door with. So Tommy's like, you guys go on ahead. I'll stay back, hold them off. You guys get to safety. So Joel and Sarah are running out through this field, and you can hear zombies like right behind you. And if you're like me and you turn the camera around to see if you do them, Joel turns around because of the aforementioned people turn around when you change the camera, which then makes him walk really slowly, and you get eaten by a zombie.
I had to take a look to see if zombies were actually chasing me, and they were.
I did not.
I turned around fast enough to get away.
Yeah,
I guess I'm just better at this game.
I'm good at games.
I hadn't been tutorialized for the quick turnaround yet, so I
didn't do the quick turnaround.
But you're just better.
I guess I just did better at this fake challenge.
Yes.
I was actually terrible at this game for like a solid quarter of what we played this week. I haven't played a real action game in a long time, and it took me a while to adjust to what I do, where I move mattering and stuff.
Yeah.
Also, the game's UI regarding like changing equipment and stuff is a little bit intentionally hard to deal with, and that was always what got me. It's like the shooting, the getting cover, the looking around, perfect, no problem at all. But if it's like, not switching one of your weapons, but reaching into your bag to switch out one of your currently equipped weapons, like it's a pretty simple button combo, but when you're in the heat of the moment, you're gonna fucking mess it up.
And I think that's brilliant because it's recreating or sort of emulating the intensity of you have to take off a backpack and reach in it and rummage around and grab something. Well, it's really good.
It's the game's best qualities. And the first time I played this game, I remembered it being brilliant. But the thing is, I think that what you're saying, the game imitating we should probably talk about this later when we actually have an inventory, but the game intentionally makes your character move slowly to ruffle through your inventory. That way you like probably shouldn't be doing it in combat, or you should have done it before you started combat, or you gotta at least make sure you got a safe space where you can do it away from the zombies, right? You can't just like instantly go into a menu and change your weapon. But they recreate that difficulty via the animations being lengthy. So it's like no matter how good you are at wrangling your controller, it is a time trade-off. It's like drinking an S2 flask in Dark Souls, right? Probably a big influence, frankly. But for me, it also was like, yeah, but my fingers also can't figure it out. So it was like, it was eventually that stuff. It was, and that wasn't true the first time. I do not remember that being the case when I played the game in 2013. I guess I'm just first at games now. So in addition to the mental game that you're supposed to be playing of time and space management, there's also the fact that my fingers just don't work anymore.
Well, I feel like that's also the thing where, you know, in the horror movie, when someone is in a panic, they can't figure out how to start a car, which feels realistic. And maybe it's the same thing happening. When you're in the heat of combat, your fingers can't figure out how to rummage through a bag, and maybe that's the point.
Well, the funny thing is that it would expand everything, though. Like it I actually forgot this just now, but it's like, it wouldn't be like, oh, I forgot how to do the inventory buttons. It's like, whenever I'm in the heat of combat, if I wanted, it wasn't like, oh, I would hit one inventory button instead of another button. It's like, no, if I want to go into inventory, I would like decide to hit the jump button. Or the shoot,
There's
the
not
shoot
a jump
gun.
button.
I would hit like the shoot gun button, and then I would get out of inventory and be totally back to normal, and then I'd be like, all right, cool, time to crouch, and then I would shoot my gun. And it's just like, wait, that's stupid. These buttons do the same thing every single time. This isn't like Assassin's Creed, okay?
Yeah, the amount of times I would close my backpack and then punch something or something similar was too damn high. But yeah, so we're carrying Sarah running away from some zombies, and they are right on our tail, but then they get shot down with some machine gun fire, and we look up and it's the cops. Surely they're the good guys in the situation. But then he lowers his gun at Joel and Sarah. Containment protocol means no one gets out, even 12-year-old girls with a broken ankle. So he unloads into Joel and Sarah. Joel dives down to get to safety. Tommy shows up and shoots the cop. Joel survives. Sarah doesn't. The Last of Us.
Dun, dun,
Summer.
dun.
20 years later.
Oh, I think you skipped a very important part, Sam. The title sequence.
Oh, yes. The title sequence then talks about.
So the title sequence has absolutely phenomenal graphics. It's one of those things where they got like some production company to just do amazing like visual effects right for it. So it's gorgeous, but it does also explain some important plot shit, right?
I mean, yeah, but it's important plot shit in the zombie virus came out of nowhere. Everyone thought it was just a virus, but it turns out it's turning people into zombies. Vaccination isn't working. There's a terrorist organization known as the Fireflies that are trying to like stop the military dictatorship that has taken over. It's the same thing that's in every zombie movie, so that's why I skipped over it.
The fact that it's not anarchy, there is a military dictatorship that took over. That is an important detail.
Yeah.
Sure. People are like in quarantine zones.
Yeah. And as you foreshadowed earlier, Sam, when you were giving an overview of the game's inspirations, this game's interesting twist that the title sequence makes clear, if you hadn't heard anything about the game yet, is that in this game, the zombies are evil fungi that take over your brain, just like the ones that take over the ant's brain. That's how it is in this game, and the graphics have do a lot to show that. And yeah, it's gross. It's fucking gross. So the bad guys in this game, the zombies, they're like fleshy, but they also have all these weird
mushrooms all over them,
spores and shit. It's real fucked up.
It's gross. But yeah, so there's a lot like this world is very well thought out and developed, but the game is really about characters. So a lot of the stuff I'll be skipping over is like really cool lore shit, but there's a lot of that. But it is all really, really cool. So 20 years later, Joel is old and hot now, and he's living in some shitty apartment. And his friend Tess comes over, and she's talking about a job that went a little bit south. They apparently have been running some smuggling jobs in the Boston quarantine zone, and some dude named Robert has like wronged them somehow. It doesn't
fucking Robert.
It's not like
Robert,
super
right.
It's always with this guy.
Also, let's be clear here. This is the second character that isn't Joel. Second female character to appear in this game. That will also sort of be like an ally character. Also, not the girl from the cover art. Lest you are people who are only listening to this and don't have anything to look at get confused.
Yes.
No, she is a full adult.
Yes. So I don't remember exactly the particulars, even while I was watching it again a second ago, why they're after Robert, but basically Robert fucked him over and they're going to go and get what they owe him. So Robert has been sending some assholes after them to fuck him up, so we decide to go fuck up Robert instead and get what he owes us. So we're walking our way through City 17 from Half-Life, and we try to get through to through a checkpoint to the area where Robert is, but as we're doing that, someone blows up the military truck right in front of us. They say that it's the Fireflies, and so they turn us away, and as the firefight breaks out. So Tess and Joel...
You would not believe your eyes if 10,000 Fireflies blew up a truck.
So Tess and Joel take the secret way out, which is a tunnel that leads under the city. And so they get out of the city, and there's a whole ass zombie apocalypse happening. So this is where we get the main gameplay loop that we alluded to earlier, which is try and get to a place along the way, get some supplies, and fight some zombos. And so we eventually do make our way to the place, which I don't remember what it's supposed to be, but it is the place where Robert is. And
it's
some wharfs.
Yeah, it's just an industrial zone. This game's got a lot of really unique locations that really stand in memory, and this, folks, ain't one of them.
What I found hilarious is they're coming at the place from like an elevated area, and they walk in and they jump down, but as they're jumping down, you just see a field of waist-high walls, and it's like, yep, now we're gonna get into the
video
gunplay.
games, baby.
Yeah, so contextless spoilers for the second for the episode next week. There's a part where you're playing through the winter section, and you come into this restaurant where all of the things are waist high, and I'm like, why is there no one here? This is obviously a boss arena. And then within 30 minutes, it was sure enough a boss arena.
You know, I wouldn't normally mention this sort of thing, but since you did already play the whole game, so spoilers, Sam played the whole game because he was just liking it too much. It's fine. We'll pretend like he didn't. But it does mean that we get to hype up. This game does one of my favorite things that any game has done structurally, because as we all know, one of the most traditional wisdoms of all of game design is that boss battles are bad. Now, people who say that generally just don't play enough Japanese video games, but regardless, it is often true that boss battles are bad, like in first-person shooters, right? Halo 1 did a great thing by just being like, we're just not going to have boss battles, right? Whereas otherwise good games such as Half-Life, like, couldn't figure that out, right?
Yeah.
This game has precisely one boss battle, which is extremely cool, and it's not at the end of the game.
It's not even close to the end of the game.
So we're just going to start building up hype. Just get hyped, because at some point in this game, there's a boss battle.
Having exactly one boss battle it's cool. It's a good move.
It's such a cool structural bit. It's almost show-offy in its ostentatiousness. It's just like, we're going to have one boss battle. It's going to come at the perfect moment as far as like dramatic intensity and character arcs. And in case you're wondering, yes, it is extremely good.
Yeah. So, when we get to the place, Robert is waiting on us. So we fight a shitload of his dudes and eventually make our way over to him. We ask him where the guns that he took from us were, but he says that he gave them to the Fireflies. He's like, let's go together. There's basically one Firefly left. We could go and kill her and get our stuff back. But Tess is like, fuck you, that's a stupid idea, and shoots him. So Joel is like, what's the idea? She's like, well, we're going to go kill that one Firefly and get our stuff back, just not with Robert. But then,
I like Tess.
Me too. But at that moment...
Hope nothing happened to her.
But at that moment...
Listen, obviously something has to happen to her, because if something didn't happen to her, then we wouldn't get to meet the character on the cover of the game's box.
Exactly.
Because 3 people all traveling together would just be too big of a target, obviously.
So, at that moment, Marlene, the aforementioned only Firefly left, shows up and is like, where's Robert? And we're like, we killed him. And she's like, well, fuck. And we're like, give us our guns. And she's like, sure, but you have to smuggle someone out of the city for me. And we're like, why would we? And she's like, look, that's the deal. And we're like, fine, whatever. So we follow her and we get a lot of good lore on like how the Fireflies work and the quarantine zones and all that stuff. But I'm going to skip over it. So we eventually get our way to an old diner where we meet Ellie, who is the girl on the cover of the box. So we quickly grow attached because she's awesome. So Marlene asks us to take Ellie out of the city, and she says that our brother Tommy said that Marlene can trust Joel. That I used a bunch of different pronouns to refer to Joel in that sentence. But she says that Joel's brother, Tommy, they go way back. And Tommy said, if you're ever in trouble, talk to Joel. He'll help you. And she's like, I'm in trouble. I need you to get Ellie out of here. And we're like, okay, fine. Tess is like, Marlene, I'm going with you to make sure you actually have our guns so that we're not fucked over, because Robert just got done fucking us over. And Marlene's like, okay, cool. So we head to a rendezvous point to wait on Tess to show up. So Joel and Ellie don't really trust each other, kind of are standoffish at this point. Is basically the point of their like hanging out. It's to show the growth, because they're inseparable by the end of the game. So that night at the rendezvous point, Tess shows up, and we make our way through a secret tunnel that's there. But right as we come out of the tunnel, we're stopped by some cops at the other end. They have a scanner to scan and see if we're infected. But as they scan Ellie, she freaks out and knifes them in the ankle. So we take the cops down real fast. And we're like, what the fuck, Ellie? And then we see the scanner. Ellie is infected. But she was bitten 3 weeks ago and never ever turned. And everyone else turns within like 24 hours. So we're like... Yep. So the Fireflies are trying to...
So we've discovered the plot.
Yeah. So the Fireflies are trying to make
it's children of men.
Yeah.
So the Fireflies are hoping to make a cure out of Ellie somehow. And Joel is like, that's bullshit. But Tessa's like, big if true. So we have more questions, but we also have dead cops, so we have to get the fuck out of there. So as we're leaving, we meet our first clickers, which are zombies that have mushroomed so hard that they no longer even have a face, just like mushroom for a face. And so they get around by using sonar, by clicking, thus clickers. They are super gross. Their animations are horrid, but they are really cool.
If they touch you, you die.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk real quick about the gameplay of this game. So, this game is it's a very modern game. It melds action and stealth in a way that pretty much every game does nowadays. But they don't do it as well, and this game did it first. Really kind of did, honestly, to have relatively elaborate stealth mechanics and also great Gears of War ass shooting all in one game. And you're only ever fighting humans or zombies. This isn't Halo, where the eventual twist is that you have these wonderfully complex battlefields that involve both. That would have been cool, but I can understand that they never figured out a way to make that make sense. Unless I'm forgetting something.
They kind of do at one point, but it really is the first half of the battle is humans and the second half of the battle is zombies.
Yeah, so one of the only things I say is a bit of a disappointment about the game is that they never do have zombies and humans in the same level. But on the other hand, again, everything about the game's plot and mechanics are like, that wouldn't make any sense. Yeah. So you kind of had two different kinds of games going on here. Anyway, when you're fighting the zombies, though, it's very mechanical. The zombies have very, very specific rules that they follow. There's these ones called, there's normal zombies, where if they see you, that's bad, and they try to get you, and you shoot them, right? Like that kind of thing, like normal style. But then you got these dudes named clickers, the same one I was just talking about, and the game's kind of weird about it. It says that the clickers use echolocation, but, like, no, they don't.
They just listen for you.
They just listen. You have to. It's like they use echolocation, and you hear them making clicking sound. That's why they're called clickers. But you just have to be quiet around them, which isn't how echolocation works.
Yeah, you can stand right in front of one and it won't.
The whole idea
hear
is that
you.
they use echolocation to see, but maybe it's true that they like vaguely move in your direction. That could be the case. I just wouldn't be aware of it. Like they can vaguely be like, oh, maybe there's someone over there because I use echolocation. But yeah, so just ignore what the game's dialogue says. It's just a weird thing about the game. Maybe they changed the game's mechanics after recording that dialogue or something. But yeah, they're blind. They're totally blind, clicking notwithstanding. But if you make even a little bit of noise, they will immediately run at you and insta-kill you. So you have to, like, sneak around and, let's say, kill them first before you fight any of the other zombies, or stuff like that. Or maybe one of them start turning at you and you just gotta shoot them real fast. What's that, Bernard?
There's an interesting twist about the clickers. You can only stealth take them down by using a shiv, which is an expendable item.
Yeah. You have to use a consumable item in order to do a stealth kill in this game, which is...
On a clicker, on the normal zombies, runners, and on humans, you can take them out just by strangling them. But it really takes a long time.
It's really quite brilliant. Clickers are always an issue in this game. I'm not going to yell too much more about the mechanics, although I might later when we get to minimums at the end, because I don't want to belabor the point. But the game's got a small set of mechanics, and it's brilliant. And the main thing that makes the game work so well here is that the levels are very designed with stuff in mind, or with their inventory in mind. What I mean is, it isn't like an RPG where you find, or like most games, let's be clear here, most video games, where you just collect health potions, and you just collect ammo, and you just collect stuff, and then, like, you eventually get to use it, right? Here, it's like, know your inventory for how many shivs you can have at once. Your inventory for how many bricks you can hold at once is one, for the record. So you can't store bricks. You don't have an inventory. So those bricks that are so very, very, very important. Yeah, a simple brick is a very important item in this game. You can use it for melee kills, and you can also use it for distracting enemies. And that does break them. Any use of them breaks them. One use of them breaks them. The number of bricks that you get in a combat level is the number of bricks they put in the level. And that might sound extremely obvious, but actually, that's revolutionary video game design, especially in the world of Western video game design. You're not like building up bricks and then chucking them out. It's like, no, this is extremely level design first game. It's not about your character having all these special moves. It's not really about the complexity of the mechanics themselves. It's not about having lots of different interesting weapons. It's not about leveling up and doing skill trees. It's about each level being its own fucking thing, and everything you do in the game, what you're doing in the game, is determined not by your own personality and your self-expression. It is determined by the design of each level.
Yeah, and you mentioned that
it's so good.
Yeah, you mentioned that you can only carry one brick, so the number of bricks that you get is how many there are. And that sort of extends to everything else because, like, how many Molotov cocktails can you hold? Three. So you're pretty much going to have 3 going into a big fight. And how many bullets can you carry for your revolver? Like 14. Not a lot. You can't stock up for things.
Yeah, and they also do the thing that I really like that I first heard about it in one of the developer commentaries when I was playing through Half-Life 2, where they play tested the level to shit and got the average amount of ammo that everyone used and then put 5 less in the level to make it super stressful and make you at least have one time where you run out of the ammo you were hoping to have, and so you have to improvise. And they do that here, and I notice it the most with my bow and arrow, because bow and arrow is silent. It's a ranged silent weapon. It was my weapon of choice, and most of the time, if I shoot and I miss, I can just walk over and pick up my arrow and do it again. But some levels I would shoot and miss, and every single one would break for no good reason, and it would just be like, no, you don't get any arrows to go into the next level.
Yep. The RNG on that is so
have
good.
Fun.
I didn't use the bow enough to like determine for myself if it was RNG if they break, or if like ones you miss break and ones you hit don't, or something like that. But is it just RNG?
I think it is ones you hit are always gone, and the ones you miss are either RNG or like weighted RNG where they
maybe there's some physics to it. Maybe there's some physics calculations, but it's complicated enough that it at least seems like RNG.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yes, that's the deal.
Anywho, so we fight our way through a shitload of zombies and eventually make our way to the Capitol building, where we were supposed to meet up with the Fireflies for Ellie. But when we get there, the Fireflies have all been killed. Tess starts freaking the fuck out. It's like, well, maybe have the map. Maybe there's something that we can go on. And Joel's like, look, let's just go back to the city. This was our shot. Like, we're done. This is it. And Tess is like, I can't go back to the city. I'm infected. She's like, I was bit less than an hour ago, and I'm already worse than Ellie's bite, which was 3 weeks ago. So Ellie's not full of shit. She's super important. Joel, you have to go and get her to the Fireflies somehow. Go find Tommy. Mm-hmm. He'll know what to do. And so she stays behind to hold off the cops, but doesn't last long. We like turn the corner and she's out. So we have to sneak past the cops to get out there.
And there was time for her to get infected. There was like a time we got separated and everything. It just, it doesn't come out of nowhere. No, it sort of comes out of nowhere, but it had time to happen.
Yeah. This game is really cool in the fact that like all of the stuff that happens in a level is important. It's just not as important as like some other things. So it's like there's a part twice this week where a character has like a close call and we ask if they're good and they say that they're good and they're damn liars and they put us all at risk. But that happens twice this week, and both times like there's a moment where me on the couch is like, you know what, I don't trust it. I think something fucking happened there.
Bill did nothing wrong.
He didn't.
Hold on, where are we at right now? Is this scene happen inside the main part of the Capitol building?
Yes, that was the Capitol building.
Okay, and are we now fighting our way out of the Capitol building?
Yes, we are.
Okay,
Getting to the subway.
This fighting your way out of the Capitol building, best human fight in the game. Best human fight in this half of the game by far.
Yeah, I
thought it was fantastic.
It's really good.
It's hard.
It is. I died a whole lot of times. So, and worse than dying a whole lot of times, there was one time where I survived with no supplies left.
Oh, that feels terrible.
It's the worst.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I was going to mention difficulty check. We're playing on normal, right?
Yes, I was
playing on normal.
Hot take. I'm going to put this out here. If you listening are wondering what skill to play this on, I would highly recommend normal. It's a very, very, very perfectly skill leveled game. Me and Bernard, first time I played it, did start playing on hard because I always love to play one click up from the default. And if Bernard had not been playing with me, I would have played the entire game on hard. But he got frustrated because Bernard has a lower patience for playing the same level of 10 billion times than I do. But I will say, if you're a true Doom murder head and you like a game to be like, it's not grueling at all. It's like each section will take you a couple tries and it's like fucking tough. Mm-hmm. But it's not absolutely insane. So if that sounds appealing to you, hard on your first try is also not a ridiculous thing to do. But if you're not like that, normal will definitely give you a great time.
To be clear about playing on hard, Maddy wasn't better at the game than me. We were we were the same level
at all than you. I was just more willing to take twice as long to play the game than you were.
And I was like, I want to see what happens next, Maddy Grace.
Yeah, you were like, for the love of Christ, please let me see the next plot cutscene. And I was like, okay, fine, we'll turn it down to normal skill. I believe the specific battle where we changed it is coming up. Actually, I'll remember when we get there.
Yeah. So I am not a difficulty purist at all. I say play the game however you want. Games are for fun. But in this game's particular instance, I would advise trying normal first instead of picking easy as your default if you're just a story plot person, because a lot of this story is really amplified when you're tense because you just got through a serious firefight, and then the characters are tense at each other, and like builds on itself in a really cool way. Yeah, that like a lot of people say like, oh, the Dark Souls and the Sekiros are the same sort of way, and I may or may not agree on those other ones, but in this particular instance, it's not that hard. Normal is like I died like 4 times tops, so it's not actually that hard. And the roughness of it adds to the whole like survival horror experience, and I highly recommend it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, again, no shade playing on easy or anything, but like in case you're I know a lot of people might be playing this game for the story. Like, I know a lot of people who are not really into action games played this game because of the story, and like that's fine. But I just want to point out that the game design is probably a lot better than you think it is. Like it is so stupendously good that it's worth giving a shot.
Yeah.
But you can turn the difficulty down later. So
that's an important fact to know. Yeah, you can change it at any time. That's very, very important to mention that. Thanks, Bernard.
Yes. Especially because there's a what feels like a boss battle, and it turns out it's not a boss battle. Partway through this game that like is super duper hard, and if you get there on normal and you're like, fuck this, I want to be a god, knock it down to easy. I don't care. But at least play through like the first clicker area on normal and get the vibes. But
totally.
So after the Capitol building, we're making our way through a subway that's super flooded, where Ellie tells us that she can't swim. This becomes important later, which is the only reason I'm bringing it up now. So Joel says that he needs to make it to the next town where he knows a guy out there who can help them find a car so they can make it out west and find Tommy. Tommy was a Firefly at one point, so he'll know what to do on how to get Ellie into the hands of the right people. So we make it into the town of Lincoln, Massachusetts, and there are traps everywhere because the guy that lives there, Bill, has rigged traps to help protect him from all the zombies. and there's a great set piece where Joel gets dragged upside down in one of the traps, so he has to shoot Ellie while upside down while she tries to
shoot Ellie.
Sorry, shoot to protect Ellie while she finds a way to cut him down.
I loved this set piece. This is one of my memorable moments, actually. But since you mentioned it, I just love this set piece, dangling upside down and trying to shoot the zombies while she tries to get you down. It's great.
It's really good. So when she does get him down, Joel falls flat on his face, and the zombies come at him right away, so he doesn't have time to fight back. But then Bill shows up, shoots the zombies, and saves them. He's like, come on, let's get the fuck out of here. So we run with Bill to his safe house, where he then turns around and is like, you know what? Fuck you guys. And he cuffs Ellie to a pipe and starts yelling at Joel for setting off his traps and being super shitty. After the emotions cool down for a little bit, Joel is like, dude, you owe me. I need a car. And Bill's like, I don't have one. And Joel's like, but you have the parts for one. And he goes, okay, maybe. There's a battery that I know of where like the cops had like crashed one of their cars nearby. So if we go get that battery, we can fix up a truck and get out of here for good.
Also, I want to point out that when Bill, after Bill saves him and he cuffs Ellie and stuff, he is like very aggressively checking Joel for bites, and that's why I say Bill did nothing wrong. He was right to do that. We have seen it twice in this half of the game. Check for bites. Yeah,
this game does such a good job of establishing the culture of the world, which is to say, like, I don't think this game goes super hard, actually, on what other zombie things do, where it's just like, look at how terrible everyone is to each other. Like, I'm not saying people are all rosy to each other in this game, but like they're mostly like, it's like, no, people want to help each other. People are generally pretty reasonable human beings. There's a lot of camaraderie, but also it's like, someone could be infected and they could be lying. And also there's the psychological idea of like, you know, maybe an infected got you, like an infected kind of scrapes you, but doesn't scrape you that good. You want to believe that you're not infected, right? So that's the thing. Like, if you check to see if someone's got a bite and they do, they might not have been lying to you. They may have been unaware, or they may have just been lying to themselves, wanting to believe that they're okay when really they're not. So there's this like there's this imposed harshness that the characters have to have with each other, but like it's not. It's completely reasonable that they're like that, right? Like other than that imposed harshness that the situation is forced upon everyone, there is still like warm feelings. And when you tell someone you can't come in because you're infected, like it's like no hard feelings, man. You know, like this is just how we have to live our lives now. There's a billion little scenes throughout the game of this sort of thing, especially in the first half of the game, and it's just really nice how they managed to weave it in so realistically.
And, like, half the time when you're fighting humans, it's not like evil people. It's the military dictatorship. Yeah. So it's like it's not like people are terrible. It's not like the real monsters are people. The real monsters are zombies and military dictatorships.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't really do the real monsters are people a whole lot in this game. I don't think the humans in this game are more monstrous than the ones in normal life. In fact, I would say largely they might be less so.
Yeah, it's like every time the characters come across one of the big three factions of humans that you have to fight, it is definitely established, okay, these people are weird and that's why they're really bad. This is not normal that every person we run into, we have to draw a gun on. It's like, oh, these are bad people. We eventually make our way to where the battery is, but it is already gone. So we're like, fuck, what do we do? But zombies are hot on our tail, so we just get the fuck out of there. We make our way through a school where we fight our first bloater, aka a big ass zombie with mushroom armor that takes 9 million fucking shotgun blasts to the face to take down.
And they have ranged attacks. I hate bloaters.
Yep. Also, I will say, earlier I said that this game has no boss battles. I do think that they do a cute little thing where the first time they introduce a new enemy, they do sort of frame it like a boss battle.
Yeah. The first
It's like,
the first clickers were that way. This first bloater is
it's
that
like,
way.
oh, here's a new enemy. Oh, it's this super dramatic thing. And like, it does feel like a boss battle. But then later it's like, yeah, here's 4 of them, bitch.
Yeah.
When we were talking about that earlier, I was sort of thinking the first bloater fight is sort of a boss battle, but it's also sort of
this
not.
is the closest thing to a second boss battle this game has. But no, if it's a regular enemy going forward, it doesn't count, no matter how it's framed.
Yeah. So, we eventually get to one of Bill's backup safe houses where we find that Bill's partner, both in the like business partner sense, but also in the romantic sense, named Frank.
They're gay, folks.
He had stole Bill's battery, and you can find his journal where he's like, Bill, I'm fucking tired of your shit. You're a horrible person. I'm stealing your fucking battery and I'm getting out of here. I hope I never see you again. Please die in a hole. But
and Joel's like, hey, Bill, I think you should see this.
Yeah. And
Bill,
but
is it gay to show your boyfriend's battery?
but Frank unfortunately got infected, so he killed himself before he turned. But that does mean that his truck has the battery and it's ready for us. But the battery itself is dead, but the car's working, so it has an alternator so we can charge the battery if we can push start it, which is a lot more stressful in this game than it ever was growing up. I push started so many trucks and I never had zombies chasing me while I did it. So this one was really stressful. We do eventually get it started, so we drive out away from the zombies, let Bill out, and continue on our way to Pittsburgh. When we get to Pittsburgh, the main highway thoroughfare has been blocked with cars, and I say has been blocked with cars because they are not like parked and abandoned. They are like set up like chest-high cover, but Joel is like, nope, fuck that, and he takes the off-ramp.
Oh my god, this leads to such a huge amount of gameplay, him taking the off ramp.
Yep.
Yeah.
We gotta kill a lot of people because he took the off ramp.
Yeah. Earlier Bernard was saying that that it's not even before we started recording actually. That this opening part of the game doesn't really feel bloated. I kind of think it does personally. But not like it's got too much gameplay because it's all great. But like, you know, there's a certain rhythm that makes sense as far as like gameplay to plot. So it's like when a character's like, we got to go to a place because at that place, the next plot beat will happen. And then on the way to the place, they have to take a detour. Well, it's like, okay, that's video games, baby. But then if on their detour, they didn't have to take like a second detour or a third detour where you're like, all right, buddy. Let's get to the place. This is the specific part in the game where it does this, and it's really the only part in the game that does this, which is nice.
If there is a bloated part, it is definitely this part.
Yes.
Also, we've already had a time skip. It's like, wait, there's a time skip. This game's divided into 4 chapters, so you'd think that the time skip would also be a chapter skip, but it isn't. This is the only of the 4 chapters that includes a time skip. It's weird.
Yeah. So as we're driving down the street, a dude is hurt, and he's like, hey, stop, I'm hurt. And Ollie's like, we have to see what's going on. And Joel's like, nah, he's not hurt at all. So Joel floors it. The guy pulls out a gun and starts shooting at us and calls all of his bandit friends for help. Oh, no. So this town has been taken over by hunters, I believe they're called. But they're basically bandits who attack and kill people who come through, take all of their stuff, and they sell it at some quarantine zone, or not even in the quarantine zone, just sell it for ration supplies, etc. Trying to reinstate capitalism in the post-apocalyptic wasteland. So they shoot at us a lot. We try to get away, but we end up crashing our truck, so we have to shoot our way out. At one point, Joel and Ellie get separated, so Joel is trying to fight his way around to get to her, but as he's climbing up this ladder, a bandit kicks him off the ladder and starts fighting him, and Joel is losing the fight, about to get got. Ellie shows up and shoots the bandit in the head. It's the first time she's had to kill someone who wasn't turning. Spoilers. And more on this next week. But she's like really distraught that she just killed a human. And Joel just kind of brushes off and ignores her feelings and kind of yells at her for not obeying him. And she's really hurt by it. So they make their way through the next level and get to an area that has a ton of bandits like hanging out down low by some chest high cover. And we're up high with a rifle. So Joel is like, hey, take this hunting rifle, cover me. And also, by the way, thank you for saving me earlier. You were right. I was kind of just upset in the moment. You did a good thing. So he
uses
like 3 words to say all that because he's Joel.
He's Joel.
Yeah. This is Joel's equivalent of trying to have a sweet dad scene with his sweet surrogate daughter, though he doesn't know that yet. And I say that not to dunk on him. It is an effective scene. Like, he is being sweet, and he's kind of doing a weird version of the thing where a dad teaches his daughter how to shoot a gun. But he does it with about 4 words, and he like kind of understands her feelings, which is better than not at all.
Yeah. So, a lot of the stuff I'm skipping over is like we come to learn that Joel, like when you first pick up Ellie's like, what's your story? And he's like, rule number 1, we don't talk about each other's lives. We're here on business. We are not friends. And he kind of continues that until he starts to lighten up as the game goes on. But he's very closed off and reserved. So when you get those 4 words from him, it's a huge character growth moment. So we set off and kill all of those bandits that we were looking at earlier. So after they're all dead, he comes to retrieve Ellie, and he gives her a pistol. And he's like, she's been asking, like, ever since we met Bill to get a gun. And he's like, no, you're a kid. You don't get a gun. And so now he's like, okay, you can have a gun, but it's just for emergencies. So we keep on trucking, trying to make our way through the city. And we see that the bandits have a big ass tank with a big ass fucking machine gun. And there's no sneaking past it. Like those.
Pittsburgh, am I right?
Those, right. So we have to sneak around, because if we come anywhere near that tank, we're just going to get got, which is very true, because I was lost at one point, couldn't find where to go. And I like walked slightly in the wrong direction out of cover, and it's like rips off your arm level machine gun fire. It's gross. So, we go to cut through this building, but we're assaulted by a dude named Henry. And so Joel like gets on top of Henry, starts beating the shit out of him, like trying to kill him. But then his little brother Sam is there, draws a gun on him. We realize, hey, we're both not bandits. We're both just trying to get through. So we decide to follow Henry and Sam to their group's rendezvous point at the radio tower right outside of town, because there's safety in numbers, and if we work together, maybe we can get past the tank. So, and
at this point, Henry does mention that they're thinking of trying to find the Fireflies.
Yeah.
So there is sort of a seed planted of maybe we could continue being friends since we're both trying to find the Fireflies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, to be clear, you said that Sam is the younger brother, and when we say younger brother, he is like 13 or something.
So he's claims
12.
to be 14, and Henry is like, "Oh, you're 14, huh?"
Yeah, it's a great little bit. I think he's actually 12, but he's trying to be 14.
The point is, he's Ellie. He's not. He's Ellie's age.
Yeah,
a little younger.
So at one point, we're like hiding out in a toy store, and Sam picks up like this Transformer type toy and is playing with it. But then Henry is like, no, like we have to stay lean. You only can take what's important. Only take what you need. Leave the toy. It's not important. So Sam puts the Transformer toy down. We keep making our way through, and we get to Henry's makeshift safe house that he had. He says that he's been waiting for a chance to get out, because he's like right there at the gate out of the city. But there's a whole lot of guards there. There's less at nighttime, so he's been trying to formulate a plan. but tonight is the night. The rendezvous time at the tower is the next day. So if they're going to get out, they have to get out now. So we head on out. And as we're leaving, the tank shows up and starts shooting at us. So we try to climb up this truck to get away, like a freight truck. It has a ladder on the side. So we're trying to like climb up that ladder. But as Joel gets up on it, the ladder breaks. So Henry's like, fuck him. And he leaves, tells Ellie and Sam to go with him. Ellie's like, fuck you. She jumps down to stick with Joel. So
Ellie is such a perfect human.
She's so
good. I love her.
So Henry and Sam run off to go do their own thing, and we're getting chased by a tank. So we head our way to the bridge, which is on the other side of the bridge is the radio tower. So we run towards it, but the bridge is out. It has a big ass hole that we can't get across. Ellie is like, look, we're stuck between water and a tank. We got to jump for it. And Joel's like, you can't swim. And she goes, YOLO, and jumps in the water. So
looks like we're gonna have to jump.
So Joel jumps in after her to save her, and it cuts to black. When Joel comes to, Henry and Sam had pulled them from the water, and Joel is understandably pissed because they left him to fucking die. But Ellie is like, yeah, but they did just save us from the river, so maybe it evens out. And like, what else were they supposed to do? And Joel's like, okay, fine, whatever, but I'm not happy about it. So we team back up and make our way through these sewers that are nearby to try and cut through to get to the radio tower.
Sewer dungeon.
Sewer level number 2 in this game, folks. I know what you're thinking. The first one was a subway, but the subway was flooded with water. So by video game rules, that's a sewer level.
Yeah,
so we're on our second one. You know what? Normally I'd say, 2 sewer levels, that's so ridiculous. And it is. But a big thing about this game is that it eschews theatrics. And the whole game is like, you're on a street, you're in a sewer, you're in a building, you're in a tunnel. Like, the game's down to earth, and this is kind of a strength. So, okay, fine, we can have 2 sewer levels. Will we have more? Wait and see.
Also, I gotta say, this whole sewer area is really good. It's really fun.
Yeah, this is definitely better than the first one. The first one was just unimaginably hard. This one, they do a lot of real cool. It's all forest. It's very vibrant and beautiful. Actually, there's plants everywhere. There's all kinds of stuff with the water. You got to figure out how to get around. It's dope.
Mm-hmm. So, there in the sewer, there's remains of a settlement. Like, it looks like multiple people had like been living in the sewer, and so they have a whole lot of like security traps, like noise traps to say, oh hey, zombies are coming in over here, it made a loud noise, let's go kill the zombies, etc. But it didn't work, and all of the people inside of it are zombo combos now.
Yeah, there is a lot. I only skimmed some of it, but there is a whole like story about the people that lived in the settlement that you can find in notes that people wrote that realistically they probably wouldn't write. It doesn't make sense for them to have written this long note to someone instead of having a conversation with them because they live in the same place.
Love to write down detailed notes about everything that happened in their lives.
Or sometimes take audio recordings and then
make audio
them
recordings.
About.
That's true. Yes, they love those as well.
Yeah. It tickled me pink when you get to the final set piece where everything is audio recordings. I'm like, oh yeah, I do remember this generation of video game consoles. Everything was an audio log. But at one point through the sewers, Joel and Sam get separated from Henry and Ellie, so we have to find their way back to them by going around, which is a really cool little flip of everything. And is also when the thing happens that I'm alluding to that we'll get to in a second. So when we find Henry and Ellie, zombies are right on their tail. So we fucking run like shit to get out of there. The next place that we get to on the other side of the sewer is a subdivision that was abandoned shortly after the outbreak. So it's not really holed up like a post-apocalyptic settlement. It's holed up like people just quarantining themselves and society starting to break down. And it's really cool looking at how that is. But of course, the bandits have moved in and taken it over, and now they have a sniper rifle. So we have a really hard human fight because the sniper just, A, he calls attention to you and they'll fucking find you if you pop out of cover. B, he'll shoot you if you pop out of cover.
Yeah,
and
it hurts.
It hurts.
This is a super
bad.
long set piece where you have to get closer and closer to the place where the guy has the sniper while avoiding him. And then eventually you get there, and then you get him. You know, you got to go like through the building and climb up the building, and then you're behind him and you get his ass. Real great setup. Reminded me a lot of the level like 3 or 4 or something. The part in Gears of War where you have to fight up to the big important house that's like Phoenix Wright. That's like what's his name?
Marcus Phoenix Wright.
Marcus Phoenix Wright's parents' house or something. You have to fight up that big hill to get to the dramatic important emotions house. I guess you're also fighting through a big hill to get to a dramatic important emotions house too. Here, kind of to it in a sense.
Mm-hmm. But we eventually do get to the sniper and kill him. So then we turn the gun around to shoot at the bandits, and we take out their tank. And it feels great to take that motherfucker down.
Yeah, you have dogging us for like 3 entire levels of video game.
Yeah, and you have to wait until the guy pops out to throw a Molotov cocktail, but then you shoot him, and the Molotov cocktail falls down in the tank. It's like, yeah, so fuck you.
Yeah, it feels exactly like taking down the helicopter in Metal Gear Solid 1. Like, that just has ruined your life for several levels, and now you ruin its life, motherfucker. And it's good. But unfortunately, it makes a lot of noise. So then there's a lot of zombies. So right after everyone's like, we did it, we killed all the bandits, they're like, oh shit, there's zombies. And so this is the fight that was half humans, half zombies. And so now you have to shoot all the zombies until your party gets safe. And the zombie part was more intense than shooting a tank, which is nuts. Also, did either of you lose to shooting the tank?
No, did something interesting happen?
Yeah, it like shows Ellie get destroyed by the fucking machine gun, and it hurts, and I did not like it. Did not appreciate it.
I'm glad I didn't see that.
Yeah, it's not like graphic and gratuitous, but it's like emotionally hurtful.
I'm assuming it's about as graphic as when Joel gets got, like by a clicker, and it cuts the millisecond it starts getting disgusting.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. But so the party makes it to the sniper house where we were, so we get the fuck out of there, and we make it to the radio tower, waiting for anyone else to show up, but they don't. Sucks. So Ellie goes in to talk to Sam to see how he's holding up, and he's not holding up very well. So Ellie asks him, what's up? And he's like, Ellie, why aren't you scared? And she's like, I am terrified of being alone. I can't imagine being alone in this hellhole that we live in. I can't deal with it. And she's like, what are you afraid of? And he goes, I'm afraid of turning into a zombie, because what if the people are alive in there? They're just trapped inside of being a zombie. She's like, I don't think that's true. He's like, yeah, but who knows? And that's why it's terrifying. And she's like, well, here, I got something for you. And she opens her backpack and hands him the transformer that he was playing with. She's like, if Henry doesn't find out, he can't get mad. And she hands it to him and goes off to head to bed. As soon as she closes the door, he throws the transformer down, pissed, and reveals to the camera that he was bitten. When he had those close calls with Joel earlier, they were actually closer than he was letting on.
I interpreted it as he got bit during the scene
Sniper
that we just saw. Because like there's a part where everyone gets tackled by zombies and they're fighting them off. I interpreted it as he got bit then, but it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It was one of those, at least one of those two places. But
it's probably better story-wise if it happened while Joel was looking after him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But So the next morning, they're all like cooking breakfast and everything. Like, where's Sam? So Ellie goes in to see him, and he is, of course, fully turned. So Joel dives for the backpack to get the gun to shoot him, but Henry like shoots at Joel to keep Joel from shooting Sam, so Henry can be the one to shoot his brother. And so Joel's like, okay, like that really sucked, but let's put the gun down. Let's not do anything anything hasty. And Henry's like, no, this is all your fucking fault. He was my little brother. How fucking dare you? Turns the gun to himself and kills himself. Cut to black. Fall. To be continued. And that's where we
Great
stop for the week.
That's a place to end.
Oh, it hurts.
Yeah. And
especially because... Mm-hmm. I was just going to say, especially because we didn't get into this, Henry is really likable, and
He's
Sam
so
and
good.
Ellie are so cute as friends.
Yeah, no, it's actually kind of neat. Actually, this game, it's like this is again just trying to clarify. This is halfway through the game. This is halfway through the game, despite what the chapter titles may tell you. And it's kind of neat. It's like the first half of the game. It's a lot of. I mean, it's very episodic. There's a bunch of little episodes, but eventually it ends up being, I mean, it's also tutorials, right? It's kind of disjointed. It's world building, it's tutorials, but then it ends up largely focusing on this build up between these characters, this relationship, right? So it's kind of like it's like an introductory little plot. You know, you get this little tragic little story with some characters that aren't important at all. And then once that's over, you go on with like the rest of the actual plot of the game. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because the rest of the game is about Joel and Ellie and their relationship, but this part really isn't because they're not really having the relationship yet. So it's just, it slowly builds, and you have these. It's a neat little structure that I feel like a lot of games do. It's like you have like an intro, and this isn't literally called the prologue, but it's like, yeah, you have a story that isn't relevant eventually, that doesn't end up mattering, be kind of your opening large arc of your thing. And it's neat. It's really dope. I like it.
Yeah, it's like the disc one of Legend of Dragoon is my favorite one of those, where it's like the plot of Legend of Dragoon happens at the disc change. Like that's when you find out about Lloyd and all of the things you have to do. And so you get through the Serdian War just because that's a thing to do to learn how to play your characters. And that's kind of what this is playing your characters, building things, and then the meat of the game is next week. And
they let these characters hang out. There's lots of incidental dialogue. You slowly build up these relationships and these characters, and then you have a tragic ending that sucks. And then this game makes very good use of artful cuts to black. It might sound funny to say that's like its signature move, like it's artistic like signature, or not signature. It's like its artistic like calling sign, call sign, because like so many movies do that, but it does it so well in this game. They do it really, really well, and it does become kind of eventually, you know, when they're coming, right? You're like, oh, they're definitely doing a cut to black and a time skip at this point. I can tell they're about to do it. Kind of literary. Like I said, this the second time I've used this word. It's literary. It's like it's the end of the chapter. Next chapter, you're at the next thing.
Yeah.
One thing about that I found really cool is, it said fall, and then I saw the very beginning of fall, which wasn't a big cutscene. It was just like them starting a level, and it was interesting because Henry kills himself, cut to black, and then fall starts. And they're just in a new place, and they've moved on, and it's sort of like their whole process of seeing that happen and getting over it and everything. Maybe that just wasn't interesting. Maybe that was mundane, which the human experience can be.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I mean, this game does a lot. Like, that's another thing about time skips is that like in other games, like. For example, an obvious place to do a chapter break would have been, again, as they leave with your drive to Pittsburgh or something. Or, like, imagine if at the end of this, the characters get into a car and they say, okay, we're now in Pittsburgh, let's drive to... Where are they in the fall? I don't actually remember.
Like
Kentucky or something?
Don't we get all the way to Jackson, Montana?
They say Jackson County, and they say what state they're in. I forget what they say.
Well,
There's
yeah,
probably
so
a Jackson County in every state, so
gotcha.
Who knows?
So the point is, getting in a car, and then you start driving, and then it cuts, and it's like, okay, now we're in Jackson. It's like, oh, the cut was cutting through the unimportant part where they literally drove a car for a week, right?
Mm.
But they didn't do that. They did what Bernard said. They cut, and then after they cut, they presumably, I don't know, continued mourning, had to get rid of the body, had to find a vehicle. Like, so much important stuff had to have happened. They didn't cut at a natural break. They cut at an emotionally intense moment. So what that lets happen is that by the time the next chapter happens, the characters are different characters. You'll notice right away that Joel and Ellie have developed since 5 seconds ago. It's just a very, very artful way to do it.
It's great. And we will talk about all of that in gratuitous detail next week. But
that's right.
For now, we will listen to some other track and then talk about our memorable moments.
This game has great music. I don't know if...
Really, really good music.
I don't know if much of it is like good listening in a vacuum. I haven't tried listening to it in a vacuum, but it's really good.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed the music. So I don't have any specifics because I think I ended up taking couple screenshots, but that's on my PS5 in the living room, and I don't feel like going to see what those are. So in general, I will just say Ellie, like all of her. I remember when the game came out, everyone was like, Elliot Page, you should sue because they just stole your likeness for the game. A, not true. B, Elliot doesn't own being a precocious teenage girl. And C, D, whatever I was on, it really doesn't feel like it feels like Ashley was inspired by Elliot Page, but it does not feel like she is doing Elliot Page to me. It feels very realized and really good, and I love her, and I will protect her with my life. There's a point in the second part of the game where something happens and Ellie gets hurt, so I stand Joel in the line of fire and put my controller down so that he gets got because he hurt my baby girl Ellie. And I played God in that moment, and I got her back because I love her so freaking much. But do you guys have specifics?
Yes.
I have just a couple. First, I want to share just a couple. First, there was, as I mentioned earlier, the best battle in the game, the best human battle in the game. I like the zombie battles better, personally. They're easier mentally. They're like little puzzles. Whereas the human battles, the humans have much more complex AI, so it's like you're fighting against people instead of solving a little puzzle. It's tough either way, though. But the battle where they attack you at the Capitol, it's the first battle in the game. I feel like it feels like it's the first human battle in the game, even though it's like not. But maybe it's the first one after the game's gloves really come off. In a sense, it sounds like tutorializing you. Yeah, actually, I think it is because you have after the tutorial stuff's over, you just have a bunch of zombies mostly. But at any rate, more importantly than that, it's the first human battle where the humans know you're there. And are being aggressive at you. That's the main thing. Because most human battles, you come across a camp, not counting the scripted ones, and like they're like maybe they know you're here or they know that something's going on, but you get to sneak around, right? But this one is like you're in the room, they're gonna bust through the door in 3 seconds, and they're way more aggressive. And at this point, it really blossomed for me because up until that point, it was like the stealth was pretty simple and it kind of followed Metal Gear rules in a sense, so it didn't have like alert levels or anything. But like you sneak around, you go behind them, they say, "What was that noise?" And then you get them. and you keep going one at a time. You just keep going. They might have patrol routes they're following. You go one at a time, and then maybe at some point you fuck up, and now it's an action game. That's fine. But in this, since they're so actively looking for you, it is such a much smoother combination of action and stealth. And also, at this point, you have stealth ways to kill people, like you have like a silenced gun and stuff. So shooting someone doesn't break your stealth. And more importantly, this game has such a more organic mixture of stealth and not stealth because, yeah, the enemies know you're there. They know you're there, but they don't know where you are. And each enemy in this game, I don't know this game's actual programming, of course. And of course, I know the video game knows where you are. The video game is a computer program. It knows where I am. But I'm pretty sure, like, the way the AI is, like, each human being either knows where you are or doesn't know where you are. And that's very different than something like Metal Gear, right? Where you go into alert phase and now they're all after you. So it was just like this smooth interplay where you're shifting in and out of them knowing where you are. It was so much more organic. Like maybe one of them sees you and then you shoot him and the other ones try to come at your room, but then you move to another room and now they know generally you're probably in that direction, but they don't really know. So you're kind of back in stealth mode. And it's and the level design also, this area, it's very large, lots of rooms, multiple levels, etc. Multiple levels as in height levels. They're all levels. The game has lots of levels. But yeah, it's just great. And it just stood out to me so much. The second thing I have, which is really the only other thing, I guess, is, or no, there's one more, but I'll just share one more for now. The thing that I remembered most from the first time I played the game, and I did not get to repeat it this time around. There's so many bespoke actions that can happen that like had to be programmed by somebody. They had to be designed by somebody. Like in addition to its algorithmic and systematic elements. And one example is early on in the very first battle when you're fighting the humans at the random industrial zone or whatever, that big battle. I snuck up on a bad guy, or maybe I didn't sneak up, I don't remember. I think the first time I played the game. And I did whatever was the typical, like, melee kill, right? You do, like, the finisher move. And usually the melee kill is, like, you knock them onto the ground and you smash their head, or something like that. But in this, or you grab their neck and you snap their neck. But in this case, the enemy happened to be next to a door frame. Like, literally, I was just fighting them and we were in a door frame. And Joel grabbed him and had a unique animation in which he smashes the guy like across the door frame.
I remember us freaking out about that.
Yeah, and just the idea that it's like, oh, some designer had the idea of what if when you were next to a door frame there was a special interaction with it, and then a programmer had to program how the game knows when that happens, and the 3D artist had to design the animations so for when that happens, and they had to play test it and shit. And all it does is just turn a video game that a very gamey. What's weird about this game is that it is so very gamey. Like it is. It's not trying to hide the fact that it's a video game. Like it's not like it is like Metal Gear in that way, where it's like we're using gaming for abstractions, right? And we're very on the nose about it. But by combining it with so many unique things, it's like, oh, this is a human being. This is not Joel, the player avatar, who does his melee kill every time you hit the melee kill button and he has a canned animation. This is Joel, the human being with a brain who can kill people in all kinds of ways and is aware of his environment. Yeah. It's wild. And it's annoying because I know that those kind of things are why game development budgets are so bloated and stuff, and why game development practices are so inhumane. And on one hand, it's like you could just say that's unnecessary. Why would you make a game or a game designer do that? But like on the other hand, it's like, no, it makes the game better. The game is better because that happened.
The thing is, games like this should exist. They should just be allowed to take 10 years to make and cost $100.
That is honestly my opinion. Yeah. I think that giant budget games like this should exist, except that instead of making them every 2 or 3 years, they should take 7 years to make them. And also they should either be made they should either be publicly funded or made with cooperatively owned game companies. And you might wonder, well, every 7 years, that means that the game technology the game graphics would be better than. Well, yeah, also we need to stop worrying about making the graphics better so much. I love graphics, but like, let's cool it, guys. Yeah, like if there's any kind of sustainable the ethical, economically, from an economic and labor standpoint, equitable way to continue making these games. I really hope there is one, because I would love those to keep happening in a hypothetical future where we're being a little bit more democratic about the way our society runs. You know what I mean? Like, I would hate to just be like, this is bad and we shouldn't do it. It's like, but it's so cool.
The thing is, it's like a cake, and it would be great to have it, but you know what would also be great? To eat it as well.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, but I mean, really, that is the issue, though. Like, the issue with a game like this existing is that every single game company now has to make them in order to compete. Otherwise, they won't compete with the other big games, and they have to crank them out in 2 years. Like, that's the problem with it, you know?
Yeah. Speaking of we should cool it on graphics. As I said earlier, the graphics in this game are not the thing that didn't age well. What didn't age well is the AI. So in the level where you are heading out with Bill to like through the cemetery, like that's a set piece. So it's like a tiered cemetery, and you basically have like 8 clickers amongst the graves that you have to deal with, and then you drop down a level and you wash, rinse, repeat. Well, I ran out of shivs and arrows and Molotovs and all of my silent ways to kill anything. And so I was super tense, had like, I could tell I had like 2 grave sites to get through it. And I was like super duper tense. So I'm trying to sneak past this clicker, because I'm like, maybe I don't have to actually kill them. Maybe I can we sneak past and everything will be okay. So I'm sneaking past, and fucking Bill pushes the clicker out of the way to hide behind some chest high cover, and the clicker doesn't even fucking care, because it wasn't like, it was just dumb AI stuff, and it completely took me out. It was hilarious when it happened. Eased all of the tension that I was storing in my shoulders from having to get through all those clickers over and over again.
I feel like having your companion characters not alert enemies is ultimately the right decision, but I do think the characters, especially Bill, could do with not running around so goddamn much. Yeah, because Bill really makes a spectacle of himself, and it comes off as very silly.
It's very goofy, and that's
he has really heavy footsteps too. So you just hear him going boom, 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 boom.
That was the other thing I was going to talk about from Mim Bombs. Yeah, the thing about this game is, like, that's why I say it's gamey, right? Like, a game that was a little bit too obsessed with being le cinematique or realistic or whatever would, like, not do this, right? It'd be like, oh no, the enemies, your allies do alert enemies. They're just as real as you are. But then it's like, you've got 2 situations. Either your ally is too good at fighting, and it's like, I don't know, Call of Duty Black Ops 1, or your ally is not good at fighting at all, in which case it's a game-length long escort mission, which wouldn't be very fun unless that's very intentional, unless you're making like eco or whatever, right? Or even if they are a pretty decent AI, it's so much more entropy to the game, right? Because then they're having their own stuff to do, and it messes up with your strategy. Or if it's like you have to order them around a lot, if it's like a squad tactics game, well, then that's a whole nother kind of game, right? So really, like, by far the most reasonable thing to do is just be like, fuck it. Bill can clump around all over the place, and the enemies simply do not hear him. Ellie simply does not exist as far as the enemies are concerned. And, like, on one hand, that's so stupid. On the other hand, it is by far, it is a million times better than any other option. and yet, I think most companies that aren't Naughty Dog would not have had the I don't know, the insight or maybe even the guts to just say, fuck it, we're doing this, and we're going to trust that you'll still care about our video game.
But I do think Sam is right, and Bill could stand to not run around so much.
Yes, absolutely. No, it's way more egregious. Like, with Ellie, you forget that it's happening. With Bill, it's hilarious.
Bill is sneaky. I mean, Ellie is sneakier, and she's just a much smaller person, so it's easier to buy that she isn't seen so easily.
Yeah, Bill's just like football player charging around all over the place.
What about you, Bernard? What are your memorable moments?
I have a lot. If it's getting too late, just stop me.
Okay, go for it.
Joe.
I have tomorrow off, so we're good.
Nice. So
actually, you know what? Hold on. I don't want to cut you off, but I also don't want to make you rush. I probably should just split. I need to nap. Y'all know my deal. I have to nap. Let me hear one of them. I want to hear one of them, Bernard, and the rest of them I can listen to later.
So it's 2013 in the opening, which I confirmed by looking at a newspaper. But Sarah has a CRT and a VCR in her bedroom, so either that's a holdover from when she was little, or she's really cool.
He's goated. No, that kid has got good taste in video games. You know what kind of games that kid plays? Probably games like Resident Evil 4 or Metal Gear Solid 3 or God Hand, a.k.a. the games that were clearly influencing this video game.
Yeah, so that was my first one.
Cool. Yeah, I'm going to nap. Y'all are great. See you later. Bye.
All right, what else you got, Bernard?
All right. So, as someone who does not live in New York or LA, it felt weird that something was happening in the big metropolitan area that I live near. It's like, it's in Austin. I'm like, what? I live in that general area. That's wild.
And so, like, relatedly, the Scarlet Spider-Man comic takes place in Houston, Texas, but they didn't, like, the artists didn't live in Houston, Texas, so the things that are happening there are generic big city things. There's a couple of times where, like, he gets out of downtown and there are no more skyscrapers because that's just not what we do in Texas, and so, like, there's stuff like that, but, like, none of the road signs feel right. The design of everything doesn't feel right, but this literally just fucking looks like they're in Georgetown. Like, it straight up feels like Texas, and it's wild.
It really does. I really appreciated that. So there are so many little dialogue moments that I could bring up, but I decided to not write them all down because I would be writing down a whole lot. And also, everything is in the context and the delivery. So I wouldn't be able to provide the full context, and I certainly wouldn't be able to deliver it as well as Troy or Ashley.
Yeah.
So, fuck it.
Fuck it.
I mentioned how I loved fending off the infected while dangling upside down. Great set piece. I love how Ellie helps you. Even before she gets a gun, she, like, will tell you there's someone on your right or something.
Yeah, 3 coming up behind you or whatever she says.
It's genuinely really helpful. And also, like, if someone's coming at you, she might throw a brick at them and distract them. Or there's even moments, like, I don't know at what point in the game she'll start doing this, but at some point in the game, if you get grabbed from behind, she might jump on the guy and start stabbing him with her knife and save you. It rules. It's so awesome.
Good. It's infinitely better than Booker Catch, even though it's functionally the same thing. And I don't really know why this one feels good and Booker Catch feels so dumb. But
I don't know what you're referring to.
In BioShock Infinite, you have a partner character the entire game as well, and she frequently helps by, like,
and she says Booker Catch.
Yeah, and she'll toss you ammo or things to help you and distract the bad guys and all of those same things Ellie does. But it works with Ellie and it doesn't with Elizabeth, and I couldn't put it into words as to why, but it just does.
Yeah, I sure played BioShock Infinite in the same year that this game came out, because it came out the same year, and I sure hated BioShock Infinite a lot. I could talk for a whole podcast episode about why I hated BioShock Infinite. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to win all the Game of the Year awards. And then Last of Us came out, and I was like, oh, thank God. This isn't going to win any Game of the Year awards anymore because Last of Us is. And then Last of Us won the most Game of the Year awards of any game ever. So thank God it defeated BioShock Infinite.
Yeah, when Infinite came out, I really liked it. But, like, in all of the ways that people didn't like it, where it was so gamey, and as we were talking about, this game is not trying to be cinematic, it is trying to be a good video game, and Infinite was not doing that. But I don't know, I had a lot of fun with Infinite, but this game I can attest is Game of the Year 2013 by a landslide.
Yeah. So yeah, I love Ellie's help. There is a fucking hilarious moment in the game where it's when you're with Henry and Sam and you're fighting through the sewers, and it is a long, arduous whole set piece, or a series of set pieces, and you go through. Eventually, they reach this building. They come up in this building on the surface. They defeat all the infected. They finally make it outside. They close the door. They turn around, and on the door it says, "Don't open, infected inside." And it's fucking hilarious, and the characters laugh at it too, and it's great. It's a wonderful moment. I love it.
It's so good.
Well, I say the characters, really just like Joel does not laugh at it. I think Ellie laughs at it, but
Yeah.
Joel has never laughed in his life.
I don't think so.
Also, one thing that I guess I should mention is the opening scene with Joel and Sarah is great. Their relationship is cute. He's like, "How did you get the money for the watch?" And she's like, "I sell hardcore drugs."
Yeah.
I'm like, "That's hilarious. I love you."
Yeah.
I'm not getting attached, though.
No, can't get attached.
Trying to think if there's anything else I specifically want to call out. Usually I'm like, I have like one or two memorable moments, but the whole game was a memorable moment this time because I love this game so much.
Yeah. I have a memorable moment that is plot-wise takes place this time, but gameplay-wise takes place later. Ellie finds issue 1 of this graphic novel at Bill's, and she reads it, and it's awesome, but it ends on a cliffhanger, and she like is pissed off that she'll never be able to find it. In the second half of the game, you find all of the comics for her. They're collectible, and it's super cute. But I just love the like idea of like, fuck, if this comic book ends on a cliffhanger, no one is ever going to be able to stop and write comic books again in a zombie apocalypse. So it's just going to be broken forever. And I really loved that about Ellie, that like, no matter, even in all this crap, she just was like, no, I just want to read about someone blowing up an alien because comics are cool.
Mm-hmm. That does remind me, though, we talk about how bad a person Joel is, and we didn't get into a lot of the little bad things that we learn about him this time around, like the implication that he's killed a lot of innocent people, which is heavily implied in a bit of dialogue. Yeah. But we talk about how bad a person he is, but Ellie did steal someone's porn, and that's pretty evil.
Yeah, how dare they?
This is not a situation where porn is abundant. There is porn scarcity in this world. Yeah. She has stolen someone's porn. That is a bad move.
Yeah. Never mind. Fuck Ellie. She's not cool anymore.
That scene is pretty funny.
It's really good.
Also, I do want to say, I remembered Bill pointedly calling Frank his partner, and then we realize Bill's gay, and I remembered that being a little weird, like, I don't know, calling him partner, that's just weird. It seems guarded in a way. But then playing it this time, I was like, well, I think with Bill, it sort of feels like it would feel too sentimental to call him anything else.
Yeah. Like,
he's intentionally putting a distance between them by just calling him partner, something that could be interpreted any number of ways.
Yeah.
So I think it works.
Yeah, and as we can tell when we find the diary entry that Frank wasn't okay with that. Frank was not happy with just being partner. He did not like Bill at all. And like, the fact that like we're going through, it's a sad scene, and you find Frank's diary, and you're like, okay, well, let me press the inventory button, select it from the list, press triangle to read it, and then you sit down and read it, and he's like, you know what? Fuck you, Bill. And I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
It's also a good moment.
It is sort of nice. Like, you could say it's a barrier gaze story or whatever, but also the romance is not idealized in any way because Frank is like, fuck you, I hate your guts, I think are his exact words.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is no fairy tale tragedy. It's very, it feels real.
Yeah. It's real good.
Yeah, I like this video game.
Me too. I knew it was going to be good, but I felt because I had put it off for so long and it had like absorbed into the ethos so much, I felt like when I finally got around to watching it, it would just be, or playing it, it would just be a thing I accomplished and not necessarily be like this good, but it is definitely this good. So if you are like me and you feel like you get quote unquote The Last of Us because of all of the discourse, you should still probably play it because it's still really good. And there's a lot of good to be had there. Because like I recently tried to play the Uncharted games and I missed the boat on them. And I don't think I'll ever be able to go back and actually play all the Uncharted games. So I was kind of expecting that from this, its baby sister. But no, it's good and it's great and everyone should play it.
It's really good.
Real good. All right. Do you have any more before we head out?
I think I'm going to call it there.
Dope. So, next week we will play the rest of the game and talk about everything that happens therein. We will not be discussing the DLC or the second game right now. Maybe those will happen down the line. But for now, if you liked what you heard, you can head on over to www.rpgbook.club, or you can donate to unlock more episodes like this. We are currently earning to unlock Final Fantasy 13-2. We've already unlocked Final Fantasy 13-1, which we'll be recording gestures vaguely into the future area. And so you can donate there, unlock some more Longcast episodes, help us buy these games and not have to pay out of pocket and all of that other good stuff. But for now, I am Sam Allman.
I'm David Bernard Houck.
And earlier you heard Maddy Grace Webben. And this has been an episode of RPG Book Club. You have a great night, folks.
Bye.
Bye.
The Last of Us is a good video game.
It's a very good video game. I was really frustrated at the ending. So much so that I Googled, do we get to kill Joel in Last of Us Part 2?
Wait, the ending?
So you played the whole game?
Yeah, I have beaten the whole game because we were trying to get ahead of it because the first summer vacation took us 104 days to get through. So we were like, oh, let's play ahead to be able to get it done over the week. So this is a busy week for us. But then we plowed through the second half of the game because the second half of the game is really good.
Oh, okay. I was very confused. Okay. I was like, I didn't do that.
No.
I actually ended up not playing it, Sam, as you suggested, partially because of busy, partially because of I didn't have internet for a few days. And fun fact, if you have a game that needs to be updated, you can't play it. But I didn't have internet. So
that sucks.
So that sucked.
If you have a game that needs to be updated on PS4, you can't play it without...
You just can't play it. You can't be like, no, I'll play without the update.
Even if you've told it not to connect to the internet?
Yeah. I was not on the internet, and it was like, you can't play this game because it needs an update.
Maybe
what are they hiding?
Maybe it required a PS4 update. But no, you played...
No. Sorry. Here's the main thing. I had downloaded this game 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, and I was about to say...
PSN. From PS4. This was the game I downloaded, and apparently in the last few weeks, I guess it had an update or something.
Yeah, that's so weird.
Isn't that stupid?
It had an update for the PS5 version in the past few weeks, I believe. So maybe there was also an update for the PS4
all
version.
I know is, what I'm confused is like, if I hadn't been on the internet at all, then it just wouldn't even know there was an update. So my PS4 was like aware that there was an update and therefore wouldn't let me play without the update. Anyway, yeah, so that made me miss my main day I was going to play. And then I forgot we were doing Wednesday and not Thursday or Friday. So yeah, I just had to catch up and, watch videos and stuff like that. So like, we're all good. Also, I have a very strong memory the first time I played it anyway.
Yeah. And you wouldn't have really had time to play it at this point because the summer season is 10,000 hours long.
I was aware of that all along. Yeah. It is. Yeah, it's really, really a funny structure of the game, honestly. It's quite funny how if you divide your game into 4 clean acts, I'm gonna expect each one to be 25%. That's what I'm gonna expect, or at least close to that. But no.
Or I could see not having a big or not having a big winter section because like shit's cold in the winter. And like it would make sense for the people to just like hole up and there not be a lot of shit going on. But ironically, it is fall and spring that are short, and it is winter and summer that are long.
Yeah, quite funny. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was a development thing. Maybe they just happened to, because every game when you develop it, you cut some stuff as a natural part of development. Maybe it just so happened that most of the stuff they cut was not in the first chapter of the game, and most of the stuff that they didn't cut was.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to play the rest of the game and see how lean the rest of it feels, because I don't feel like Summer was bloated in any way or there was any problem with how it was structured, but it was very slow in a really good way. So I'm wondering if the rest of the game will feel that way.
In case you're curious, Last of Us Part 2 is not like this. It has a pretty unique structure. It's developed and it's got chapters just like this game, but I'm ignoring the chapters for now. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's also divided into sort of some acts and then like some days. And each day, the days do vary in length, but not a whole lot. They do vary widely in plot development. Like, I feel like they all have a similar number of, like, combat zones and a similar number of, like, segments, but vastly different amounts of, like, how much plot happens during the day, which is kind of funny. But I remember there were parts where it's, like, a character goes out, does a lot of stuff, and then ends up, like, going to bed at night. And then I'm like, oh, that's the end of the day, right? But then, like, they wake up in the middle of the night, and it's like, no, there's 3 more levels. And I'm like, what?
Isn't that how it goes sometimes?
God, that is how it goes sometimes, huh?
Yeah. All right,
I'm excited to play The Last of Us Part 2. Not immediately, because I don't think I can take 2 games this bleak in a row.
Yeah, I really want to play The Last of Us Part 2
Part
now.
2 is endlessly more bleak.
That's what I've heard.
Than the first one. I will say it's also probably more fun. It's also not. I don't mean gameplay wise. It is better gameplay wise, but it's also more fun in that it just is more of an exciting journey and less of like a slog, because it is more gameplay variety. So it's like you're doing all these crazy set pieces instead of room after room after room of zombies. They add on, they expand on the gameplay variety. So it makes it a little bit more exciting. It's also a much broader story. So I will say it's not as intense as far as characters. It's more about broader ideas, I think, in a way. So I haven't, I played Last of Us 2 pretty recently and played Last of Us 1 a long time ago, but I would say it'll probably stick with you longer as being a more unrelentingly bleak artistic statement, but on a moment-to-moment basis, I'd say it's probably less so.
All right. Well, let's talk about The Last of Us Part 1.
Hell yeah.